There comes a moment when you realize that not everyone who enters your story is meant to stay until the end. Some people are only there to teach you something about yourself, your strength, your boundaries, your worth. But the mistake we often make is trying to turn a temporary character into a permanent one. We hold on, hoping they'll change, rewrite the ending, or finally become the person we kept believing they could be. But love isn't meant to be forced. The people who are truly right for you won't make you beg for consistency. They won't make you question your worth, and they definitely won't make you feel small in a story you're meant to lead. Cutting him out of your story isn't about bitterness, it's about clarity. It's about realizing that peace and pain can't coexist in the same chapter. There's a certain kind of power in walking away quietly, no drama, no revenge, just the silent decision that says, you no longer get a seat in my story. Because sometimes strength doesn't roar, it whispers enough. And when you finally listen to that whisper, when you decide to cut him out, not out of hate, but out of self-respect, that's when your story begins to change. That's when the next chapter becomes lighter, freer, and truer to who you really are. No regret, no repeat. Just peace you can't heal from someone you keep romanticizing. That's the truth we don't want to face. Because even when we know deep down that someone hurt us, we still replay the highlights, the good moments, the laughter, the affection, the illusion of what it felt like when things were perfect. Our mind becomes a movie editor, cutting out all the scenes that made us cry and replaying the ones that made us feel alive. But here's the problem. When you only remember the good, you're not missing him. You're missing the idea of him. You're missing the version of him you created in your heart, not the reality of who he was in your life. He wasn't the fairy tale. He was the test that showed you what kind of love you'll never settle for again. He taught you what inconsistency feels like, what false promises sound like, and what emotional exhaustion can do to your peace. Yet when we're healing, we tend to blur those truths. We tell ourselves it wasn't that bad, or maybe I was too harsh, or maybe if I had just done things differently, we could have made it work. But that kind of thinking is dangerous, because it keeps you emotionally tied to someone who never met you halfway. You start romanticizing the very pain that broke you, mistaking attachment for love and nostalgia for truth. You scroll through old messages, listen to songs that remind you of him, and call it healing when it's really reopening the same wound. It's easy to crave what's familiar, even if it hurt you, because the unknown life without him feels uncomfortable. But you can't step into your next chapter while clinging to the fantasy of the last one. If you strip away the emotion for just a moment and look at what really happened, you'll see it clearly. You showed up, you gave your best. You loved him in ways he didn't even recognize as love because he wasn't ready to receive it. And instead of matching your effort, he took it for granted. He made you question your worth when all you ever did was offer him genuine care. That isn't love. That's manipulation disguised as affection. And once you see that, you can't keep pretending it was something beautiful. Healing begins the moment you stop romanticizing the person who hurt you, the moment you stop turning pain into poetry, the moment you say, yes, there were good times, but the bad outweighed them. Yes, I cared, but I also lost myself in the process. Because the truth is, if someone was truly right for you, you wouldn't have to fight so hard to feel seen. Love shouldn't drain you, it should ground you, it should bring you peace. So stop rereading the same chapter hoping the ending will change. It won't. The version of him that lives in your memory is a fantasy, an edited version built from what you wanted him to be, not who he actually was. You can't move on if you keep trying to rewrite the story to make him look better than he was. You have to accept the reality. He wasn't the one. And that acceptance, that moment when you stop lying to yourself about what it was, is when you finally get your power back. You stop longing for what broke you. You stop chasing the ghost of someone who's not coming back. You start seeing that letting go isn't about losing love, it's about reclaiming your peace. Because once you stop romanticizing what hurt you, you stop giving it control over your heart, and that's when true healing begins. We spend so much time waiting for closure, like it's a gift someone else has to hand us before we're allowed to move on. We wait for that final conversation, the apology, the explanation, the moment that finally makes all the pain make sense. But here's the truth most people never tell you: closure doesn't come from them, it comes from you. Because the kind of person who left you confused, hurt, or betrayed is rarely capable of giving you the clarity you're searching for. They didn't have the courage to show up for you when you were together, so why expect them to suddenly find it now that it's over? You don't need to hear "I'm sorry" to heal. You don't need him to explain why he did what he did. You don't even need him to see your worth anymore. What you need is to decide that the story is over. You create your own closure by accepting that not every story gets a perfect ending. Sometimes you have to be the one to close the book, not because you got what you wanted, but because you finally see that you deserve better than what you got. Closure is a decision. It's not waiting for someone to fix the mess they created. It's saying to yourself, "I'm done cleaning up someone else's emotional chaos." It's realizing that peace doesn't come when they come back. Peace comes when you stop going back. The moment you decide to stop seeking understanding from someone who thrives on your confusion, you take back your power. When you stop chasing closure, something incredible happens. You stop being dependent on his validation to heal. You stop living in emotional debt, waiting for him to pay you back with words that will never be enough. Because even if he did apologize, it wouldn't erase what happened. It wouldn't undo the nights you cried, or the parts of yourself you had to rebuild. Real closure doesn't come from hearing him admit he was wrong. It comes from realizing that you don't need his voice to validate your pain. The truth is, closure comes the moment you stop needing an ending that makes sense. You stop trying to solve a puzzle that was never complete. You stop rewriting the same text in your mind, thinking if you just said it differently, he might have stayed. He wouldn't have, because the ending wasn't a result of what you didn't do. It was a result of who he chose to be. And once you accept that, you can finally stop torturing yourself with what-ifs and maybes. When you finally say, "I don't need to understand why, I just need to accept that it's done," you give yourself permission to move forward. That's what closure really is: acceptance. Acceptance that the chapter ended, even if it didn't end the way you hoped. Acceptance that the silence you're left with is better than the chaos you endured. Acceptance that sometimes walking away without answers is the answer. You don't heal by getting closure, you heal by giving it to yourself. You look at the situation and say, "I didn't deserve that, but I also don't deserve to keep suffering over it." You stop waiting for the perfect goodbye and start creating a peaceful one on your own terms. You stop reopening the wound by checking if he's changed, by scrolling through his life, or by holding on to the hope that he'll one day realize what he lost. Because maybe he never will, and that's okay. His inability to see your value doesn't diminish it. You're still enough. You're still worthy. You're still whole even without his apology. The closure you've been searching for isn't in his words. It's in your strength. It's in the quiet decision to move on, to heal, and to never again wait for someone else to end your pain. That's when you finally close the door for good, not because you got the ending you wanted, but because you finally chose yourself instead. When you finally build the strength to walk away from someone who kept breaking your heart, the hardest part isn't leaving, it's staying gone. There's a temptation that sneaks in quietly, in moments of loneliness or nostalgia, when you start thinking maybe he's changed, maybe this time will be different, maybe the connection you had deserves one more try. But every time you reopen the door you fought to close, you teach him something dangerous, that he can lose you and still keep you. That no matter how many times he disrespects your boundaries, he can count on your forgiveness, that you'll always be there, waiting, ready to give him another chance at the love he never valued. And that's how the cycle begins again. He comes back with the same words, the same charm, the same empty promises dressed up as growth. You want to believe it because your heart misses him, not because he's proven anything different. But if he truly changed, you wouldn't have to guess. You wouldn't have to beg for consistency. You'd feel it. His actions would match his words. His presence would bring peace, not anxiety. But when you go back to what hurt you, you're not giving love another chance. You're giving pain permission to start over. You can't heal in the same environment that broke you. You can't rediscover your worth while standing in the same space where you were taught to question it. Going back might soothe your loneliness for a moment, but it costs you your progress. It's like cleaning a wound only to rip it open again just to see if it still hurts. Of course it does, because healing requires distance. It requires you to let time do its work without interference. Every time you let him back in, you delay that process. Cutting him out isn't about bitterness. It's not about pretending you never loved him. It's about choosing peace over patterns. It's about realizing that love should feel safe, not uncertain. When someone constantly makes you doubt your place in their life, that's not love, that's emotional instability disguised as passion. You deserve something steady, something that doesn't make you question whether you're too much or not enough. The truth is, walking away takes courage, but staying away takes discipline. It's easy to miss him. It's easy to remember the good moments, but those moments don't erase the nights you cried yourself to sleep wondering why he kept choosing everything but you. They don't erase the anxiety you felt waiting for a text that never came. They don't erase the confusion of being loved one day and ignored the next. Those memories are real too, and they matter just as much as the good ones. You can't keep reopening the door hoping for a different ending when the story has already shown you how it ends. Love shouldn't require you to lose yourself just to keep someone else, and every time you let him back in, you lose a little more of the peace you worked so hard to rebuild. You start to forget how strong you were becoming. You trade your progress for temporary comfort that always fades once reality returns. So this time, when he tries to come back with his familiar words, remember what it cost you the last time you believed them. Remember the strength it took to walk away. Remember the nights you prayed for peace and promised yourself you'd never go back. That's your truth, that's your growth. You owe it to yourself to protect it. You don't need to slam the door with anger. You can close it with grace, quietly, firmly, and permanently, because real healing doesn't come from revisiting the past. It comes from honoring the lesson it gave you and refusing to repeat it. Staying gone is your victory. It's how you prove to yourself that you value your peace more than your pain. And that's when you finally take back your power, not when you walk away, but when you never look back. There comes a point where you have to realize that your energy is sacred. Every text you send, every thought you give, every ounce of emotion you pour into someone, it all costs you something. And when you keep spending that energy on someone who doesn't invest it back, you end up emotionally bankrupt. Protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's survival. Because the more you give to someone who drains you, the less you have left for yourself, for your peace, for the people who actually deserve your presence. When you love deeply, it's natural to want to give. You want to help, to fix, to understand. You tell yourself, maybe if I love him harder, he'll finally love me right. But that's not how love works. Love doesn't require you to deplete yourself to keep someone else comfortable. You can't keep pouring into someone who keeps poking holes in your cup. Protecting your energy means recognizing that not everyone deserves access to you just because they once had it. He might come back trying to pull you into the same emotional patterns, the long messages, the nostalgic conversations, the "I miss you" texts at midnight. It's tempting to respond, to reopen the connection, to fall back into the rhythm of familiarity, but that's how you lose yourself again. Every response is an exchange of energy. Every bit of attention is an invitation. You have to start asking yourself, does this add peace to my life or drain it? Because peace isn't something you stumble upon, it's something you protect intentionally, fiercely, and without apology. When you protect your energy, you start seeing things clearly. You begin to notice how much lighter you feel when you stop chasing, stop explaining, stop trying to make someone care. You realize that love shouldn't feel like emotional labor. It should flow, it should feel mutual, and when it doesn't, no amount of effort can fix that imbalance. Protecting your energy is about knowing your worth even when someone else couldn't see it. It's about choosing yourself every single day, even when it's hard, even when it's lonely. There's a quiet kind of power in saying, "No, you don't get my time anymore," not out of anger, but out of peace. Because when you take back your attention, you take back control. The same energy you once used trying to get him to care can now be used to build the life you deserve. You can pour that love into your goals, your friendships, your growth. You can use it to rediscover who you are when you're not carrying the weight of someone else's indifference. The truth is, people start valuing your energy the moment they no longer have access to it. When you stop answering, stop showing up, stop explaining, that's when they notice. But by then, it's not your job to make them understand what they lost. Your peace is not a negotiation. It's a boundary, and once you've tasted real peace, chaos will never feel like love again. Protecting your energy isn't about building walls, it's about building standards. It's about saying, I'm not available for inconsistency, I'm not available for confusion, I'm not available for half love. You get to decide who enters your space, who gets your time, and who earns your energy. That's the kind of power that changes everything. Because when you start protecting your energy like it's sacred, you stop settling for connections that leave you drained. You stop chasing validation and start attracting alignment. So let him wonder why you've gone quiet. Let him miss your energy. Let him feel the absence of the peace you once brought into his life. Because your silence is not punishment, it's protection. You're not cutting him off to hurt him. You're cutting him off to heal you. The energy you save now will become the fuel that helps you grow, glow, and rise higher than you ever thought possible. That's what happens when you finally understand that your energy isn't free, it's precious, and not everyone deserves the privilege of it. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, least of all to the person who hurt you. When you've been betrayed or taken for granted, it's easy to fall into the trap of wanting them to see what they lost. You imagine becoming so successful, so happy, so unbothered that they'll regret ever letting you go. But healing isn't about making them wish they'd treated you better. It's about reaching a place where you genuinely don't care whether they do or not. Because the moment your peace depends on their regret, you're still giving them power over your happiness. Revenge is tempting because it gives the illusion of control. It feels like a way to reclaim your dignity, to make the pain mean something. But the truth is, focusing on revenge keeps you tied to them. It keeps you living in reaction to what they did, instead of creating something new for yourself. You can't move forward while you're still looking over your shoulder, hoping they're watching. Healing means freeing yourself from the need to be seen, acknowledged, or validated by the very person who broke you. When you start to heal quietly, something shifts. You stop posting for attention. You stop explaining your side of the story. You stop replaying the pain in your mind, trying to make sense of it. You begin to find power in your peace. You stop being driven by anger and start being guided by self-respect. And that's where the real revenge lies, not in showing him what he lost, but in becoming someone who no longer needs him to lose sleep over you. You see, the best kind of closure is peace. The best kind of revenge is indifference. When he no longer has emotional access to you, when his name no longer stirs anything inside you, that's when you've truly won. Because at that point, he's no longer a villain in your story. He's just a lesson you've outgrown. You're not carrying him in your mind anymore. You're not using him as motivation. You've detached, and that's the most powerful thing you can do. It's not that you forget what happened. It's that you no longer let it define you. You stop identifying with the pain. You stop letting it shape your decisions. You can look back without bitterness, because now you understand that what felt like rejection was really redirection. What hurt you actually guided you toward a stronger version of yourself, and when you start to see it that way, the need for revenge fades because you realize there's nothing to prove. You already won the moment you chose peace over chaos. There's something incredibly graceful about healing in silence. You're not shouting your growth, you're living it. You're not performing happiness, you're genuinely finding it. You're not trying to convince anyone that you're over it, you just are. The strength that comes from that kind of healing is quiet but undeniable. It doesn't need to be seen to be real. It radiates from your energy, your calm, your confidence. People can feel it without you having to say a word. And maybe one day he'll see it too. Maybe he'll think about you and realize what he lost. But by then, you won't care. You'll be too busy living, loving, and creating a life that doesn't revolve around who hurt you. Because true healing isn't about getting even, it's about getting free. It's about being so at peace with your past that it no longer steals from your present. It's about understanding that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength. It's you saying, you no longer have control here. When you heal without needing revenge, you reclaim your power. You stop being defined by what broke you and start being shaped by what you built after. The quiet confidence of that truth will always speak louder than any comeback, any post, or any proof. Because peace, real, grounded, unshakable peace, is the most powerful revenge there is. Every story has characters who come and go, but not every character deserves to stay until the end. He might have played a role in your story, maybe a big one, but that doesn't mean he belongs in the next chapter. Cutting him out of your story doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It means understanding that his part is finished. You can acknowledge the chapter, learn from it, and still move forward without carrying him in every page that follows. Because healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about reclaiming the pen and deciding how the rest of your story will be written. There's a version of you that existed when you were with him, a version that loved deeply, that gave everything, that tried endlessly to make things work. That version of you was real and sincere, but she was also operating from hope, not clarity. You kept believing the story could change if you just held on a little longer. You kept rewriting the ending in your head, thinking that maybe love could rewrite his patterns. But love doesn't rewrite someone who doesn't want to grow. It just keeps you stuck in the same chapter, rereading the same pain, trying to find meaning in someone else's mess. When you finally decide to cut him out of your story, what you're really doing is freeing yourself from that endless loop. You stop making him the center of the plot. You stop measuring your happiness based on whether he notices you, misses you, or regrets losing you. You start realizing that your story was never meant to revolve around him. It was meant to revolve around your growth. And that shift in focus changes everything. Suddenly, the story becomes about your healing, your self-discovery, your comeback. It becomes about you. You begin to understand that not every connection is meant to last forever. Some people come into your life to teach you something about your boundaries, your worth, or your strength. Once that lesson is learned, the story doesn't need to keep repeating itself. The problem is, we often confuse emotional attachment with destiny. We think just because someone made us feel deeply, they were meant to stay. But sometimes the people who impact us the most are the ones who were only meant to walk part of the journey with us. Once you accept that, you stop chasing what's behind you and start creating what's ahead. Cutting him out of your story doesn't make you cold, it makes you conscious. It means you're no longer giving away pages of your life to someone who's already shown you they don't know how to treat them with care. It means you're done revisiting old wounds, done rereading old messages, done hoping for a rewrite that will never come. You're not erasing him out of denial, you're removing him out of self-respect. You're creating space for something new, something healthy, peaceful, and mutual. And when you start rewriting your story without him, something beautiful happens. You begin to see how strong you've become. You realize how much peace comes from not needing closure, not needing his attention, not needing his validation. You rediscover your own rhythm, your own joy, your own purpose. You start writing chapters that feel light again, filled with things that make you come alive, with people who show up, with love that feels safe. One day, you'll look back at that chapter and it won't hurt anymore. You'll see it as a part of your evolution, necessary, painful, but transformative. You'll realize that what you thought was the end was really the beginning of your real story. Because cutting him out doesn't end your story. It just stops the repetition of one that wasn't serving you. The moment you let go of what was, you make room for what's meant to be, and that's where true healing begins, not in rewriting the past, but in writing your future with intention. You take the pen back. You stop waiting for someone else to give you a better ending. You realize that you are the author, not the abandoned character. You get to decide what kind of love, peace, and joy fill your pages next. That's the power of cutting him out. It's not about losing him. It's about finally finding you. When you finally cut him out of your story, you're not losing love, you're gaining clarity. You're not walking away empty, you're walking away lighter. You're not erasing a chapter, you're turning the page. And the moment you do, something shifts deep inside you. That ache that once defined your days starts to fade, replaced by a quiet strength that says, I survived that and I'm better for it. This isn't about proving a point or making him regret losing you. It's about no longer letting someone else's absence define your worth. You've spent enough time replaying memories, hoping for different endings, and apologizing for expecting the bare minimum. Now, you choose peace over pain. You choose to stop editing yourself just to fit into a story that was never meant to last. Because the truth is, the best revenge is not revenge at all. It's indifference, it's silence. It's moving so far forward that he becomes nothing more than a blurry detail in a chapter you've long outgrown. And one day, when he looks back and realizes what he lost, it won't matter anymore because you'll be too busy living a life that no longer revolves around him. So let this be the chapter where you close the door for good. No regret, no repeat, no return. Just a woman who chose herself fully, fiercely, and unapologetically. That's how your real story begins.